Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name's Rhiannon and today I'm filming my November wrap-up. I've actually read a lot more books than I thought I did this month. I thought I'd only read about 5, but I think I've read 7, if I'm counting correctly. We'll see as this video goes on. But if you didn't know, November was the month of Believathon, which is a middle grade readathon hosted by Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin. I will leave all the information to the readathon and to Gavin's channel down below for you guys, so if you want to check that out, please do. But the aim of the readathon is to follow some prompts that leads you to solve a mystery. There were 13 prompts. Obviously I didn't manage to get to all of them. If you follow my weekly reading vlogs, you'll know that I was doing a good job, and then all of a sudden I realised it was the end of November and I still had quite a few books I needed to read to complete Rhiannon's bookish bingo, so I ultimately had to prioritise that. I am just going to include the books that I finished in this video, because if I talk about the books that I've started, we'll go on for ages, because I think I've started 3 books but haven't completely finished them yet. So yeah, just to save some time, I won't be talking about those ones. So without further ado, let's just get into the video. So the first book that I read in November was First Class Murder by Robin Stevens. This is the 3rd book in the A Murder Most Unladylike series, and in this one our 2 main characters, Daisy Wells and Hazel Wong, are taking a holiday on the famous Orient Express. But from the moment they step aboard, it's clear that everyone in their carriage has something to hide. Then one night a scream is heard and a wealthy heiress is found murdered, and the murderer seems to have vanished into thin air. So in this one, Daisy and Hazel must solve their first locked room mystery whilst facing competition from several other detectives who are every bit as determined to solve this case as they are. I really enjoyed this book. I think I gave it a 3.5 star review on Goodreads, but the more I think about it, it might nudge it up to a 4. I'm not quite sure. But if you couldn't tell from the synopsis, this is very much a play on Agatha Christie's The Murder on the Orient Express, and we do have several nods towards that book in this one, which I really liked. I liked how they were drawing parallels. I liked how the murderer seemed to be aware of that novel too, because a lot of things that happen are quite similar in regards to when they happen, to who, and all of that. So that was really fun to read about. I feel like it was quite slow though. I don't know why, but this is the first book in this series that I struggled to get through, which is weird because I absolutely love Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express, and obviously this is meant to be a little bit more fun and less dramatic, so I thought it would be very easy to fly through, but for some reason it just took me a while and I found myself not really fussed about picking it up. I would much rather have read something else, which is quite weird for me. I also feel like it wrapped up really quickly, so we find out the identity of the murderer and then it sort of finishes there. There's no sort of repercussions. We don't follow any of the other characters and see why they did certain things on this journey, and I just found it a little bit unsatisfactory. Again, I know it is a middle grade, so there's not as much detail needed in a way, but I just would have liked to see it play out a little bit differently, especially towards the end. Even though this wasn't my favourite, I'm definitely excited to carry on. The next book I read was Dragon Mountain by Katie and Kevin Sang. As you can see, I don't have a physical copy of this book, and I did end up listening to the audiobook through Scribd, but this was such a good surprise. This got 4 stars from me. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was such a strong first book in a series. It is also a new release, which I hadn't really heard about, but it did come out last month I believe, and I just happened to stumble across it because I was looking through Scribd for some audiobooks to listen to, and this popped up, and of course once I see dragons mentioned anywhere in the book, I'm going to pick that up, and I'm so glad that I did, especially in this one, because it does incorporate Chinese myth into it, which is very fascinating. But in this book we follow a 12-year-old called Billy Chan, and one summer he is sent off to a summer camp in the middle of China. There he meets his fellow campers, Dylan, Charlotte and Ling Fei, and together they actually stumble upon an age-old secret: 4 powerful warrior dragons hidden deep in the mountains behind the camp. They have actually been trapped there since an epic battle with the Dragon of Death, and they need the help of the children to set them free in order to prevent terrible evil being unleashed on the earth. Billy and his friends ultimately find themselves being sent to the heart of the dragon realm to try and help these dragons save humanity, but can they save both worlds from destruction? Like I said, I really enjoyed this book. It was a really good mix of humour, folk tales and quite serious events, so you had all of them which came together really nicely to give you this fun mystery and adventure adventure story. I did kind of see how it was going to play out by the end, but honestly I'm not disappointed because I had such a good time listening to it that I didn't really care that I sort of knew what was going on, and that's when I know that a book has done a good job. I'm quite sad that the next book probably won't be available until next year, so I am going to have to wait a while to continue on with this series, but I will definitely be picking that book up once it's out, and I cannot wait to get to it. Next up we have another book that I don't physically own, but that is The Explorer by Catherine Rundell. This is another one I gave 4 stars. I did really enjoy it, but again the ending wasn't really satisfactory and you did have to suspend your disbelief a lot throughout this book. So in this book, Fred, Con, Lila and Max are making their way back to England from Manaus when the plane that they're on actually crashes and the pilot dies upon landing. They've actually crash landed in the Amazon rainforest, and for days they survive alone until Fred discovers a map that leads them to a ruined city and a very big secret. This was a really fun survival story. One element in particular that I liked about this is the fact that they do give you certain facts about the Amazon rainforest, such as the animals and the different plants. So that was really interesting to read about, and it definitely kept my attention because I love learning about things like that. I find it so fascinating, and I feel like it's just good to know because if you ever did find yourself in that situation, at least you'd be a little bit better informed on what to avoid. So I feel like the author did a really good job with researching the different facts, and I feel like if you are a younger reader reading this, then you would get a lot more out of it because obviously it's very high stakes. You're following these characters that have to survive in a jungle by themselves, and I feel like if I would have read it when I was younger, it definitely would be a favourite of mine because again you have the danger element, you have the fun explorer element to it, and you have a group of friends that just stick by each other and help each other out throughout this whole experience. So it's just a really interesting, fun read about what would happen if a group of kids had to survive in the jungle. Like I said, it's not completely believable at parts, but again it is a middle grade book, it's meant for younger readers, and I think it does a really good job of enticing the reader in and does a good enough job of giving them a satisfactory story with a really good ending. Next up I read A Sprinkle of Sorcery by Michelle Harrison, and this book actually got 4.5 stars from me, which is such a good rating, but it's not as good as the rating I gave the first one because I did actually give that one 5 stars. For this one I am just going to read the back because I feel like it's just going to intrigue you and make you want to pick it up straight away. But it says, 3 sisters with a magical secret. A race against time to find a place that exists only in fairy tales. A journey that will take them into unimaginable danger. Set sail on a spellbinding adventure from the best-selling author of A Pinch of Magic. I wasn't sure going into this if you had to read the first book in order to pick this one up, and I'd say you don't have to, but it definitely would help because we do follow on from that event, and so a lot of things that happen don't really get explained in this one. You're just expected to know what the relevance is. But honestly I'd say pick up the first one anyway because it is such a good book. Again, the audiobooks for these are amazing and I would highly recommend them. I did listen to the audiobook of this whilst reading along physically and I really enjoyed that experience. That's how I read the first book and I just think I get a lot more out of it whilst doing that. This was a mystical, magical story filled with folk tales and riddles, which I really enjoyed. So if you do like that sort of thing, this would definitely be a really good book for you. I can't wait for more books in this series. I don't know where it's going to go because these sisters seem to have a knack for getting themselves into trouble. But yeah, another amazing read and I'm so glad that I finally got around to it. Right, just a quick warning for you guys, these last 3 books that I'm going to talk about are all kind of similar and they did all get 5 stars from me. The first one of those being Solita by Michelle Paver. I don't know how many times I've said this, but this is one of my all-time favourite series. I absolutely love these books so much. They are the books I turn to when I need to escape. If I'm ever having a bad day, if I'm struggling to find something else to read, I will always revert back to these. And again, I'm just so happy that I read this month because it just solidified the fact that I am absolutely in love with the series, the characters, the world, just everything in it is absolutely perfect. And I have actually found a new element to these, which is the audiobooks. If you don't know, the audiobooks are narrated by Sir Ian McKellen, who is one of my favourite people on this planet. If you don't know who he is, he plays Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit movies, and I just love him so much. So to hear him narrating one of my favourite series of all time is just something I never knew I needed, and I was quite apprehensive going into it because I wasn't sure how it would all work, but I absolutely loved it. I did say in one of my reading vlogs where I read this book that he sounds very much the same as Stephen Fry when reading the audiobooks. If you've ever read a Stephen Fry book, you'll know what I mean. At one point I did have to stop the book and check that it actually was Sir Ian McKellen reading this and not Stephen Fry, so I would definitely recommend the audiobooks if you want a more accessible way to read these. I can't tell you much of of what this book is about because it is the third book in the series, but in the first one we follow a boy named Torak who is part of the Wolf clan. So in this world we are set in a prehistoric time period where people are separated into different clans and each clan is represented by an animal. So like I said, Torak is part of the Wolf clan, and one day him and his father are out camping when they are both attacked by a demon bear. This bear actually kills Torak's father and sparks him to go on an adventure to destroy this bear before it destroys the world and humanity itself. He does have help along the way by Ren, who is part of the Raven clan, and also a wolf cub named Wolf. I love Wolf so much, you guys. I think it's such a big part of why I love this series because we do get his perspective and it's just the best thing ever. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, then again I'd highly recommend you pick these up. And I am going to put this book down now because I feel like I'm just gushing about it way too much. But yeah, it's an amazing series with amazing characters and I just highly recommend you pick it up. Next up, I read Frostheart by Jamie Littler. This book has so much hype around it and now I definitely see why. I love this book, you guys. It had all the different elements that I love in a story. It's basically an adventure story set in a snowy setting with a found family trope and also a villain in disguise. In this one, far out in the coldest part of the monster-infested snow sea, Ash desperately waits for his missing parents to return. But one day, an accident reveals that Ash has magical powers, and so he's whisked aboard the Frostheart, which is an explorer sleigh with a daring crew. And it just says here, can they help Ash master his new powers and find his family? I don't know why, but it did take me a while to get through this book. I don't know if it's because it's quite a long read, or I don't know if it's just because I'm feeling a bit slumpy, I'm not feeling too good, and so I tend to turn towards watching TV shows and films when I feel like that rather than reading. So I think it was a combination of a load of different things, but when I actually got to it I did read quite a bit in one sitting. I think I read 100 pages in one sitting, then I read a couple of pages here and there, and then I finished it all in one sitting and I had about 150 pages left, I think. So it was definitely a weird read for me, but I just absolutely loved the story so much. Again, the ending of this one was a little bit predictable. I did sort of see where it was going to go, but it did sort of save itself because even though I knew what was going to happen, there were elements in it that I didn't expect, and I think it set us up for the second book beautifully. This also has stunning illustrations throughout it, which definitely help keep you engaged and interested in the story because it just helps you visualize some of the characters and the settings. I mean, look at this little guy. I loved seeing him pop up. I think he's the cutest little character. But the author, Jamie Littler himself, does actually do the illustrations as well, so it's just an all-round really nice book. Definitely a heartwarming, wholesome read, and I cannot wait to carry on with the series. And then lastly, we've come to the last book of the month, and honestly, one of my favourite books of the year, and that is Northern Lights by Philip Pullman. I am blown away by this because I have actually read this before and I gave it 4 stars, but I never carried on with the series, so I thought this year I'm going to make sure to give this a reread so that I can finish the other 2 books. And guys, this was phenomenal. I gave this 5 stars. Like I said, it's one of my new favourite books. It just had such a strange and deep effect on me that I genuinely cannot believe it, and I honestly don't know how I ever gave it less than a 5 stars. I don't know if it's the fact that I also listened to the audiobook of this because it is narrated by a full cast. Philip Pullman does the narration and then we have different actors doing the different voices of the characters, and I feel like that is such an amazing way to present an audiobook because it's not confusing. You recognise the voices as being certain characters, and so it's very easy to get through and to picture. I honestly read half of this book in one sitting. I could not put it down. For this one, I am just going to read you the back because I feel like it just sums it up beautifully. And it says, Lyra Balakwa and her animal demon live half wild and carefree among the scholars of Jordan College, Oxford. Her destiny will take her to the frozen lands of the Arctic, where witch clans reign and ice bears fight, and the extraordinary journey that awaits her will have immeasurable consequences far beyond her own world. This is another wholesome story, even though it does deal with very hard and distressing topics. There were parts of this where my skin was literally crawling because the things they describe is just absolutely horrific. But to be honest with you guys, I'm so glad that they kept the dark stuff in here because it just wouldn't have the same effect if they sugarcoated it and glossed over it, because what happens here is essentially the foundation of this whole story, and so in a way we need as much detail as we can get to see why it's so important that these things are now happening and how it's going to affect everyone, not just certain people. I can't believe this is targeted towards younger readers though, because it is very disturbing. I did have to pause a few times and just take a bit of a break because, like I said, it's very dark and really horrifying to think that these things are happening, and honestly it's not too far-fetched either. Like, it's very believable. The things that are happening in this could well happen in real life, we just wouldn't know about it and it would be done in a different way. And so there was always that in the back of my mind thinking this is actually quite believable, which is very, very scary. Lyra herself as a main character is one of my new favourite heroines because she is just so selfless and so brave that it's truly refreshing to see. She's not trying to do anything for anyone else's benefit, she is purely doing it because she knows when something is wrong and she needs to change it. And that's a lot of what this story is about. It's about Lyra having to fulfill her destiny, but she's not allowed to know what her destiny is, because if she finds out then it will never come to light and the world will fall into ruin. So she is quite ignorant in this world, and a lot of people know about what she has to do but obviously can't tell her. And so the fact that she doesn't have a personal gain in any of this, that she's purely just trying to help other people who have suffered at the hands of others, is just so nice to see. She puts herself in danger, she goes to extreme lengths to help the people that are less fortunate than her and the people who have fallen victim to circumstance as well. So it's just all round such an amazing book with so many different topics and the lessons that we can learn from those topics that I was just completely blown away. I haven't stopped thinking about it since I finished it, and I am about to start the second book today. So you will definitely see that in the next wrap up that I do, possibly the third book as well, we'll see. Just know that I feel like this is going to be an all-time favourite series for me now, and I'm scared but also so intrigued to see how the rest of the books play out. So these are all the books that I read this month, as well as Dragon Mountain and The Explorer. I thought I did a lot worse than this, to be honest with you. Sitting down and reflecting on all the books that I read this month, I actually had such a good reading month. I enjoyed every single book that I read and I found a new favourite book. So all in all, I think this month was a really, really good reading month. I can speak highly for every single one that I read, and I will definitely be recommending these in the future. Right, that is it for today's video, guys. But before we go, I am going to share with you a Welsh word of the day. And I don't know if you can tell, this is actually a Game of Thrones jumper, and it does say here winter is coming. So I thought it would be fitting to give you guys the Welsh translation of winter, and that is gaeaf. Gaeaf. Please feel free to leave a comment down below letting me know what you read for Believathon, if you participated, or if you agree with my thoughts on these books. If you'd like to talk about any of these further, then I would love to do so. Whilst you're down there, don't forget to click the like button as well as the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content from me. Thank you guys so much for watching, it truly does mean the world to me, and I will see you soon in my next video. Goodbye!